Join me, your host, Sean Lynn, in the pub for a Dram with Friends, where we talk about faith, family, food, and fun. Pull up a chair and I'll pour you a drink. Episode 9. We sit down with John Angotti, longtime friend. He's a man on a musical mission. Sit down as I pour us a dram. Welcome to another episode of A Dram with Friends. We're blessed to have my good friend John Angotti join us live from Nashville, Tennessee. That means I should pull out my bourbon. And I've got a nice Elijah Craig. I don't have any Tennessee mash, as they like to differentiate down there. That stuff south, that's mash. That's not bourbon.
Uh-huh.
What are you gonna have?
Well, I believe it or not, I have a apple crown right here. Ooh. Which is what I like on ice.
So that's a Canadian whiskey, isn't it?
It is.
See, we're culturally sensitive.
That's right.
Going both ways. Welcome, John.
Thank you. It's great to be here. So,
John, if you could tell our audience who John Angotti is.
Well, I'm many things. I'm a director of music at a local church. I'm an artist, Catholic artist. Stop it, Nash. That's my dog biting on something over here. And I'm a father of two. I travel around the country. I was in the United States Navy music program. I was the lead singer in the Navy rock band. I spent 4 years in the seminary. I have a marketing degree from West Virginia University, and then went on to Naval School of Music and toured with the United States Navy Band. And I have a master's in pastoral studies from Catholic Theological Union. When I started doing missions and things of that nature, I knew I needed to go deeper into the faith. That, just what I knew from my head knowledge or what somebody else told me or what I got when I was going to Catholic school, I knew wasn't enough information, that I needed to go deeper into my faith and take the journey. And I'll tell you, the more you go deeper, the more you realize how big the chasm is. The iceberg is huge,
As they say, shallow enough for a mouse to wade in and deep enough to drown an elephant, eh?
That's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I had no idea you had that much background. You and I met at the One Rock Festival. You were up a couple times.
Yep.
I gave you a beer rather than a whiskey when you stopped by the trailer, but you and your band, they seem like really good guys, and you guys were so much fun to work with, and I love your music. I have it in my playlist on my motorcycle, so it makes its way through, and when you're doing the long miles, it's awesome stuff to listen to.
Well, that's great. One of the guys in the band, Grady, the guitar player, he passed away this year.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he passed away in February. He was with me for 20 years, and he got pancreatic cancer about a year and a half ago. And so his last tour was this last Christmas. We did a big Christmas tour throughout the country, and that was his last run.
Wow.
And then he died in February. So
I am so sorry to hear that. And
yeah,
that brings home kind of what us men need to realize is life is short, and what are we doing with that life that God has given us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a difficult question that I think that each of us answer, because truly the battle is on the inside. The battle is in, there is a spiritual warfare I've come to really see. And the spiritual warfare is because each decision that we have to make happens in our head first. in our mind. It's in an invisible place where, you know, we have choices to love or hate or forgive or not forgive, or, you know, and so there's all these, there's these voices I find that talk to us in our head where the battle is, you know, and it's a battle for the soul. It's the battle to do the wrong thing. So you hurt that one. And then it, you know, it sets off a whole catastrophic of trouble and issues when we make, and I only know that because that's what I've done my whole life, you know, and thank God we have confession.
Praise the Lord. Yes.
You know, to restart again and just try to do better, you know, I think.
Well, and speaking of musicians, I remember Bob Carlyle had a song where it was, the saints are the sinners that fall down and get back up again. And that just said so much. And I love that line, just, and that talks to the power of music, how you can embed that into somebody. I used, and I'm having a brain fart right now, I used one of your songs. Somebody asked me to lead the funeral services for his mom a couple of years ago, and I used one of your songs for it, and just where you talk about leading from hope to love. You end up with love, right?
Yeah.
Hope, faith, and love, I think it was, is
oh, could have been God. Our God is love. Could have been that, or could have been love. Oh, yeah, could have been that. Anyway, a lot of songs about love, bro.
Well, and they ring true, and they get deep into people's souls, and my girls, my youngest, who's the only one left at home, she has her music player blaring all the time, and that's why it's so important to feed them good, solid music, because as you talk about that battle, there is a battle, and it happens in every walk of life, and especially in our music industry that the kids are listening to.
Yeah. I just wrote a book too, Sean. I just finished it. Just came. Yeah. It's called The Encounter, and it's actually about that. It's a fiction story, but it's based in truth. So over the years of traveling, so many people have come to me with their questions about God and faith and everything else that a lot of times we don't necessarily have the answer to, right? You know, because it's such a mystery. So what I did is I took many of these questions and I put them into one character, into a fiction character who goes through, you know, it goes through his faith journey and the encounter that he had. And it's kind of an adventure book. So it's a fiction book, but it's based in truth. So at the end of each chapter are questions. So as he goes through his journey, then there's questions at the end of each chapter for people to, you know, think about in their lives, you know. And so I wanted it to be something that would be not doctrinal, but something that carried a truth that people could still feed their faith with, you know. So I think writing it as a fiction.
What age range is that one geared towards? Like, is it something
it's 18 on up.
Okay.
I'd say even 16 on up. Yeah, I got some friends in some of the schools down here are going to try to order for one of the, it's 100 pages. It's not that long. Get it on Amazon.com. It's called The Encounter. And it opens itself up to a sequel, you know. So it talks about the battle that this character who ends up saving somebody's life, and he ends up dying. And he gets to the other side, and he's greeted by an angel who happens to be his brother who passed away earlier in his life, who tells him there's a war going on in the heavens between the light and the dark, but it's being fought on earth by the choices that people have to make, to love or to hate, to forgive or not to forgive, and how sneaky it talks about. So it goes through his encounter of him encountering God, this understanding of the temptations of the good and the bad, that we have these choices to make, and sometimes they're hidden. You know, we even see in our church, people with power are tempted by the dark side, but it comes up, you know, they're in places of power, and so, you know, what ends up being the truth You know, I think that's an issue with our faith that a lot of people struggle with, because, you know, they look at the institutional side of things and say, well, that's corrupt. And it's got humanism in it. It is, but it also carries a truth in it that can't be denied. So,
and that's,
you know,
and that's so powerful. And that's where, so this show is going to air on heroicmen.com, and that's where we're trying to encourage men and feed them with good, solid stuff, because it's the men, the laity, that need to challenge that corruption by being holy, right? And leading our families in holiness. And that way we're challenging our priests, our pastors, our bishops to do the same thing. And we're encouraging them to come with us, but we're also, they're not afraid to move forward either, because they know that they've got good, solid men to cover their back. Like, as a police officer going into calls, you want to know that your partner's got your back, right? And and knowing that somebody there has you, will support you, so that you can take on that darkness is so important.
Yeah.
I was doing a little,
and it's, yeah.
Go ahead. You were going to say something, John?
No, go ahead.
Well,
no, go ahead.
I was doing a little research on you, and it looks like you also wrote a musical. Is that, or were you just perform?
I did. I wrote a musical based on the story of Job, which came about many, many years ago, 1999. We had just done Jesus Christ Superstar. I was music director for the cathedral in Wheeling, West Virginia. We had done Jesus Christ Superstar, and it was a powerful event inside the cathedral there. And funny story was, I had this black wig on, and so the guys in the band, you know, they only saw me for dress rehearsal and after. And I ended up playing with these guys after the show in like a real band kind of thing. But then I went up to them, and I had shaved right after the show and took the wig off, and I started talking to the band like I knew them, and they're like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "It's me." It's kind of funny. Anyway, so from that experience, I just felt compelled of this story of Job. You know, why do bad things happen to good people, and really kind to it really kind of spoke to me, because I thought it would, and I still feel it's the question of the day that people struggle with, is why do bad things happen to good people, and how can there be a good God that lets that happen? And nobody has a good answer. We can reason on it all we want, but at the end of the day, that's just a guess. What's the real reason? I don't know. And so what occurred to me was that there are two things that you can't prove in a court of law, but each of these things, if you asked anybody what was most important to them, they're going to give you one of these two things. So if you ask somebody what's most important to them, they're going to say their faith or their family. And the two things you can't prove in a court of law are the existence of God and the existence of love. Can't prove love exists. So therefore, but you know love exists because you can feel it. So it opens us up to live inside of this mystery that we can't always fit it between our ears, but people want to fit everything between their ears so they can feel that they're right, but it's all such a mystery and we're still evolving. And so in this story of Job, you know, he loses everything, loses his financial stuff. He loses his family. You know, he ends up with sores. And what always struggled with that is at the end of Job, there's this part of it that says, you know, after he meets God, you know, he face to face, you know, that God gives him back his kids. He gets more kids, more stuff. And, you know, it kind of has a Disney ending. And I thought, you know, my sister lost her son. She don't get him back. And my brother that lost his son, he don't get them back. How do you live with that? That ending doesn't make sense. So when I was getting my master's degree, we part of one of the classes was God and the Mystery of Suffering. And the professor, this priest, Robert Ryan, who wrote this book called God and the Mystery of Suffering, proceeds to tell us that the ending of Job was an add-on, that the people at the time could not live with just the reality of trusting in God, that sometimes crap happens and you have to live your whole life with that. And how do you maintain faithfulness when you've been crapped on and you've lost it all? And so the meaning of the story is really, it's like what we have today with Jesus, I trust in you. It's about Job got to see through the eyes of God that it's beyond his understanding. And now you have a choice. You can live in faith or you can live in despair. And that's how I wrote my story, was based on that ending. So it's a story about it starts off in real time about a man that's struggling with his own mortality. And he's been through difficult times himself. And he has a friend who's a religious one who's an agnostic, his wife, and he has 3 other friends. And on their way to the soup kitchen where they were going to help feed the children that day, he gets the phone call that he's sick. And he takes this lament to God. And the religious one comes to him and says, let me tell you a story that may help you with your suffering. And as he begins to tell him the story, the character falls asleep. And as he falls asleep, he dreams. And all of a sudden the set changes, comes to color. And he becomes Job. And the agnostic one becomes Satan. And the one who's the religious one becomes God. So it has a little bit of this Wizard of Oz feel to it, where the characters all come alive inside a dream. And at the end of the dream, it ends with this song called Trust. You've got to trust in me. You got to trust in me. You got to trust. Now don't you get off track. See now, I got your back. You got to trust. So it's got like a big kind of show tune where he gets this hope, and then it all of a sudden the set turns around, and now he's faced back with his reality. But now he has this story of realizing he's got a choice, and he chooses.
I've got a son who's very much into acting and drama, musical theater. He's done the lead in quite a few productions here. He's actually up at the U of A, where they only take 6 males a year for their drama program. And you have to do a year somewhere else before you even audition. So that's where that gives me hope that there's good, solid productions out there that he can use his gifts and talents to help evangelize others and bring that message of hope to the world. Because that Jesus, I trust in you. And when you were talking, I couldn't help but think, but like Peter, with the question from Jesus, well, do you guys want to leave too? And he's going, where else will we go? Like, what other option do we have here? Yeah, I'd take it if there was another option. But
yeah, now that you presented it in such a way, I got no other option but to walk in the truth.
Yeah,
you know, and he's looking at it going, well, this is going to, not be fun for a while. But anyway, that's part of the deal, is that, we're working towards, the kingdom is coming. It's already happening, and
it is. And we need to journey as brothers together to help our family, our friends, just continually present that message. And you've been doing it for a long time, it sounds like. And you said you're old, but I'm not sure. I think you're a middle-aged guy like myself. So
yeah, that's right. We're middle-aged. I'm not.
That's right. So
I still have to work for a living.
One of the segments that I ask guys is, a lot of our young men are struggling today and trying to figure out what it is to be a man. And so I ask my guests, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self right now?
I would say ponder more. Really spend some time in thinking through, what is the truth? What is God calling you to? And no matter what you choose, no matter what I would choose in my life, to really see how God is working in my life through the struggles. At 18, I didn't have a concept of the presence of God. At 18, I struggled with Christ present in the Eucharist. I struggled with my faith. I didn't know what I wanted. All I wanted to do was make money. And I would want to tell my 18-year-old self that is not bringing happiness. And to use your gift and your talents to make the world a better place. And in doing that, you end up serving God. So that's what I would tell my young self, to really kind of ponder, like Mary, they said Mary pondered. And sometimes when the question came to her at that young age, and I know we think instantly, oh, Mary said yes. No, it said she pondered. And to ponder something, maybe it was a week, maybe it was a month. Who knew how long she took to say yes to that answer? I don't think it was a month, but nevertheless, to sit and really think through things, because I know myself, I didn't think through things properly. I made rash decisions too quick based on emotions and didn't ponder enough and add faith into the equation. So that's what I would tell my 18-year-old self.
Thank you, John. That is so powerful, that we need to stop and think and just ponder, like you say. Unfortunately, yes, as a young man, we fail quite often to do that. We just go and
social media today, it isn't always helpful. Today with the cancel culture that's out there, and if you don't agree with me, I'm shutting you down, and people are. It has some downfalls to it. I mean, we're, because of COVID and all that kind of stuff, we're blessed to have it, but it's a medium, and so it's people who use that for good or bad. You know what I mean? So it's us once again messing things up.
Well, and that's where I hope and pray that us sitting down for a dram and sharing a positive message with men, that it's not that bad. Jesus, right. I trust in you. It's on our front door and back door, and just that reminder that we're protected, we're looked after, and we've got an end goal in sight. So I want to thank you for taking the time. I pray that you get up to Calgary again in the near future, and if I'm down visiting my daughter, I'm definitely going to stop in Nashville. And
absolutely, stop in and we'll have a dram.
That sounds like a plan. And I didn't stop at the JD place on my way south last time, so I might have to stop in there and try some Tennessee whiskey. So
there you go.
Thank you. And
all right, John, thanks so much.
God bless. And this Ishkabaha is the Gaelic word for whiskey, which means water of life. And I pray that you continue your ministry leading men to the true water of life that we all thirst for.
Amen. God bless.
I hope you have enjoyed this episode of A Dram with Friends. If you have any questions or suggestions, please email us at adram@godsquad.ca or go to godsquad.ca to support and donate.